Hello, I'm still experimenting with Periscope. My name is Markou. I am the writer and director of a film called Papadopoulos and Sons, which was a British indie hit. For all those who are just joining, I'm the writer and director of a film called Papadopoulos and Sons, which was an indie hit from about 2 years ago, starring Stephen Delane, who some of you might know as the bad guy Stannis in Game of Thrones. So I've just decided to do a very quick broadcast for any aspiring filmmakers out there on what book to read if you are interested in making a film. But I'd also argue that even if you're an established filmmaker, this book is a must-read. And I read that Darren Aronofsky, who made films like The Wrestler and also Black Swan, actually reads this book that I'm going to talk about very briefly as part of his filmmaking process. So he reads it before he makes a movie. And that book is Sidney Lumet's Making Movies. It's a brilliant book. And why do I love Sidney Lumet? Well, we're talking films like Network, Dog Day Afternoon, The Verdict, Serpico with Al Pacino. And I believe that Sidney Lumet as a director has garnered more Oscar nominations for actors than any other director in the history of movie making. So he must be doing something right. And his book is excellent. For all those who've just joined, I'm talking about Sidney Lumet's book, Making Movies. And what you learn from it is that filmmaking for Sidney Lumet starts with the story. Everything comes from story. And he sees his job as the director to interpret the writer's version of the story and what the spirit of that story is. And so for Lumet, understanding the spirit of a story then informs how a film is cast, it informs how a film is edited, it informs the music, the tone, the production values, even the lighting. So what Sidney Lumet does, and what you get really a sense of in this book, is what few directors do now, is that the writer is the centre of this kind of creative process. Some of you may have heard of the auteur school, which places the director at the centre of this, not the writer, and therefore the director's interpretation is what counts. Sidney Lumet is the opposite. He champions the writer, gets to understand what the writer is trying to say and what the spirit of that story is and how then that is interpreted. So the two great examples of this are two films that Sidney Lumet made, one in 1974, Murder on the Orient Express, and then one again a year later, Dog Day Afternoon with Al Pacino. And you could not get two more different movies. One of them, Murder on the Orient Express, based on the Agatha Christie book, is lavish. It is a huge cast. I mean, it's got everyone's in that film. And it's a period. And it's got very high production values. And then a year later, Lumet makes a film that kind of was revolutionary. It was almost docudrama, Dog Day Afternoon, and it's based, because Dog Day Afternoon with Al Pacino is based on a real story of two men robbing a bank in order to raise money for a sex change. He then almost does the opposite of what he did with Murder on the Orient Express. He uses real people, often, not famous actors. I mean, there's obviously famous actors in it, but around it, he's using real people. He's using lighting from real sources of lighting, like that is a real source of lighting, as opposed to the lighting that they would use normally. And he's allowing people to improvise as well. And that film went on to win the Oscar for Best Screenplay. So what's interesting about Lumet is that no two films are the same, because no two writers are the same. And some directors you'll see it straight away, it's a Quentin Tarantino movie, or you'll know straight away it's a kind of movie that reflects the style of the director. In the case of Lumet, he's able to make very, very different films. So that is my recommendation for tonight. My recommendation is, for all aspiring filmmakers out there, Sidney Lumet's Making Movies. It is brilliant. It's a must-read. And I think, for £6.99, so much wisdom and advice. And it's practical. And it's real. So that concludes. I'm trying to get used to Periscope, how it can be used. My name is Marcus. You can find me on Twitter, and I'm speaking at the Edinburgh Film Festival in about 10 days' time on the changing nature of distribution. I do lots of talks at film schools. I spoke at Film London recently. So what I want to do is see if this method of broadcasting can work as a sort of tool for education. And I know that this video stays in the loop for 24 hours. So anyway, I hope you found that useful. Sidney Lumet's Making Movies, and good night. There was nothing on TV tonight. I mean, that's the truth. Good night.